We now have an actual humanitarian crisis on the border that only underscores the need to drop the politics and fix our immigration system once and for all. In recent weeks, we've seen a surge of unaccompanied children arrive at the border, brought here and to other countries by smugglers and traffickers.
The immigration crisis on our southern border is starting to reach critical levels as droves of children from Central America are crossing over into the United States under the premise that they're going to be allowed to stay. According to government projections, between 60 and 90,000 are going to cross into America this year alone. The rush is causing major problems for Customs and Border Protection agencies, which just don't have the capacity to house the influx of kids. According to reports, many Border Patrol agents are spending their work they're buying groceries and doing laundry instead of patrolling the border. The crisis is sparking some political debate in Washington, but it's also causing a difference of opinion within the Latino community across the U.S. Some immigration advocates are sympathizing with illegals, while others, whose ancestors are themselves perhaps arrived here legally, say that if they had to take the legal route, others should too. Joining me now with both points of view, National Spokesperson for the LIBRE Initiative, Rachel Campos Duffy, and Fuentes Strategies Managing Partner, Janice Fuentes. So, Rachel, Janice, good to have both of you here. Rachel, let me start with you. We've seen this pretty amazing influx of children. These are not adults coming. These are kids whose parents are basically just sort of tossing them over the fence and saying, good luck, hope you make it. Does this hurt those who came here legally, who stood in line, paid the price, spent years preparing to make it as Americans?
Well, I mean, the president talks a lot about fairness, and I do think that some of the most ardent voices for people following the rule of law and doing it properly and getting in line are people who are immigrants who did it the legal way. My mother is one of them. But I just want to say that there was a growing consensus here to deal with the dreamers that were here already. And what we see happening through, I think, the president's silence, we've known for now 2 years that these numbers were coming over the border, and he said nothing to stop it. And as a parent, I mean, you know I have 7 children, I hold him personally responsible for whatever violence or rape, whatever has happened to these children on the journey up here, and also the deplorable conditions in these detention centers. This was entirely predictable. And through his silence, he has incentivized over the last 2 years this increasing number of children coming up here unaccompanied. He's responsible for it.
Janice, do you feel like that the government has really failed to have any control of our borders? And I mean, I think it's jeopardized any idea of getting immigration legislation passed.
Well, to put the issue in perspective, I think we need to talk about the numbers. You just mentioned the border, Governor. The border gets $17 billion in help. So I think if we use some of that money to basically put the coyotes out of business and pass immigration reform and let's talk about the kids. And I love you to death. You have 7 children. That's admirable. She's a brave woman. But we must talk about how we're dealing with these children. I think in this argument, throwing words like you're opening the doors, you're putting out the welcome mat, is because we said, Obama by his silence, according to Rachel, has said it's an invitation. Let's dig deeper. Let's hear what the kids are saying when they're being interviewed. If you talk to the immigrant refugee staff who interviews the people, the kids, not one child of thousands interviewed has said, well, because I heard they were getting everybody in for free, and once I got in, I was able to stay. Not one has said that. Let's also go further. When we got close to passing immigration reform...
What are they saying? Because I'd heard that they had been coached, they'd been told what to say.
They're saying they're fleeing the dangers in Central America. Let's look at the countries. Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. Honduras, if you could look it up, everyone can look it up, qualifies under the United Nations murder capital of the world. That has an impact. Rachel's a mother. If her kids have the choices, let me send them north where there's a relative who maybe can keep them safe if they make it. Or they're about to get killed in a moment. But shouldn't that relative meet them at the border and say, I'll take care of them, not just leave them for the border agents to change their diapers? We have to put the coyotes out of business. If we put some of that money that's going into the border control, $17 billion, into trying to cover all that encompasses going through the border, I think we could combat this much better. E-Verify, for example. Having E-Verify would go a long way in trying to make sure that the people who are working actually employed. Why don't we have E-Verify today? Because Congress has said, no, wait. First, we must pass this law to deport 11 million people, which is
that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Right, it's a fantasy.
Janice and I both agree that we need immigration reform. In fact, Republicans agree that we need immigration reform. The discussion is about what that's going to look like.
Right.
But in this case, once he saw, over the last 2 years, we saw this increasing number of children coming unaccompanied, he had an obligation as a president and, frankly, as a parent to get on television, speak with the leaders of those countries to stop children from coming alone. Because you and I both know, sure, the situation is can be very desperate in those countries. Right. But that journey means you might not ever see that child again. Right. There's just no excuse for the president not doing something.
You're right. But I don't put the blame on the president. I think that...
Well, who do we put the blame? Yeah. I mean, who is...
Let's talk about... I just said... Did anybody hear that I said Honduras is the murder capital of the world? Did any of us had our child living in Honduras, murder capital of the world? You would think, I think my child... It's a tough choice. Who wants to get their child on that coyote's hands, on that train, to go up north? Do you think that's an easy decision?
Janice, do you think, though, that the millions of dollars that we're sending to countries like Honduras, which we send to them in aid, should we say, look, if it's going to cost us, $50 million to care for these children at the borders, then the $50 million that you would have got, you're not going to get it now because we're going to take care of kids that you've sent. I mean, isn't there some way that the United States ought to exact something for this? I mean, otherwise, I feel like that the U.S. is being treated almost like saps, that we'll just go ahead and say, well, you don't have diapers, we'll take care of it.
We have a process in place to deal with the kids who basically come unaccompanied or are minor. They go into detention, then there's a process to try to find who their parents are, deport them back, depending on where they're from, figure it out, come before a judge. And we need to think clearly and thoughtfully about how we deal with these kids, because they don't have the same rights that any of us have if we don't have money to get an attorney to represent us.
Rachel, I want to get you in before the end. Do you think this is pretty much killing the idea that there's going to be any legislation?
I think that's the bottom line. And I think that we all, like I said, we all agree there needs to be immigration reform. The distrust that has been caused, not just by this chaos and dysfunction at the border, but also the idea that our president thinks he can act unilaterally, that he feels he has no need to compromise. There is a middle ground here, and as long as the president, who's the leader, stays in his corner and doesn't engage the other side to come to the middle and find a consensus for this problem, we're going to continue to see this kind of stuff. And it's unacceptable, and children, the lives of children are at stake.
And I think that's something we all agree is unacceptable, to let the children be caught in the middle. Janice, Rachel, thank you both. Great to talk to you. And we didn't get the problem solved, but then neither did Washington. So we'll keep working on it. I'm not sure they will. Thank you both for coming today.
Thank you, guys.